If you've ever sat down at a poker table and felt like you were playing pretty well, you were probably right. Most people at that table are worse than you, and you're still going to lose money over your lifetime. Not because of bad luck, not because of bad beats, because of math that was working against you before you ever touched a chip. Today we're going to look at poker the way risk analysts and insurance companies look at any long-term financial position, with actual numbers. No opinions, just the math. And what the math shows is uncomfortable. I'm POW. This is the house math. Let's get into it. Before we talk about skill, strategy, or even luck, we need to talk about the one player at every poker table who always wins. The house. Every casino, and most poker rooms, charges something called a rake. Think of the rake as a table fee. A percentage the house skims off the top of every single pot, every single hand, all night long. Here's how it typically works. In a standard live poker game, the kind you'd find at most casinos, the house takes roughly 5% of every pot. Most rooms cap that at somewhere between $5 and $7 per hand. That sounds small. Let's put real numbers on it. Say you're playing what's called a $1/$2 no limit hold'em game. That just means the minimum bets start at $1 and $2. It's the most common low-stakes game in any casino. The average pot in that game runs around $30. The house pulls $5 from that pot. A typical table plays about 30 hands per hour, so the house is pulling $150 per hour off that table. Every hour, without fail. Split that across 8 players, the standard table size, and you're each effectively paying about $19 an hour just to keep your seat. Before you've won a hand, before you've outplayed anyone, before a single card has been dealt in your favor. That $19 per hour is what professionals call a structural cost. It doesn't care how good you are. It doesn't care if you're the best player at the table. It comes out of every pot regardless. Think of it like a toll road. Doesn't matter if you're a great driver or a bad one. You pay the toll every time you get on. To break even at poker, forget profiting. You first have to be good enough to win back that $19 an hour before you make a single dollar of actual profit. That's the foundation. And most players never even account for it. Okay, so the rate costs you $19 an hour. What if you're just better than everyone else at the table? Shouldn't skill overcome that? Here's where it gets interesting. Poker is what's called a skill game with high variance. Let me break both of those words down. Skill game means the better player does win more often, over time. Unlike roulette or slot machines, your decisions actually matter in poker. A skilled player genuinely has an edge over a bad player. High variance means the short-term results are wild and unpredictable, even for the best players. Those two things create a brutal combination. Services like Poker Tracker and Hold'em Manager, software tools that track millions of real poker hands played online, consistently show that somewhere between 70 and 85% of tracked players are lifetime losers. And here's the thing. These aren't casual players. These are people motivated enough to download tracking software and analyze their own game. They're already more serious than the average person sitting down at a casino. Even among that more serious group, the majority are still losing money over their lifetime. The players who are truly, consistently profitable, sustaining a real edge over hundreds of thousands of hands, are estimated at somewhere between 1 and 5% of the total player pool. So when we say 99% of players won't be profitable, that's not pessimism. That's roughly what the data shows. And remember, those winning players still have to overcome that $19 per hour rake first. The skill edge has to beat the house cut before it becomes profit. Here's what makes poker uniquely brutal compared to almost any other game or investment. Variance. Let me explain variance in plain terms first. Imagine you flip a fair coin, 50-50 odds, 10 times. You might get 7 heads and 3 tails. Does that mean the coin is rigged toward heads? No. It means 10 flips isn't enough data to see the true odds. You'd need hundreds of flips before the results started to reflect the real 50-50 probability. Poker variance works the same way, except the sample size you need to see your true results is enormous. A solid winning player at low stakes might have what's called a win rate of about 5 big blinds per 100 hands. Big blinds are just the unit of measurement in poker. In a $1, $2 game, 1 big blind equals $2. That win rate sounds reasonable. But the natural swing in poker results, The statistical term is standard deviation, runs about 80 to 100 big blinds per 100 hands. In plain English, the natural ups and downs of the game are roughly 16 to 20 times larger than your actual edge. What that means in practice, a genuinely profitable player needs somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 hands before their results become statistically meaningful. At 30 hands per hour in a live casino, that's 1,000 to 3,300 hours of poker. Just to know with reasonable confidence whether you're actually a winning player. Most people never play that many hands in their lifetime, so they never get an honest read on their own edge. They run hot for a month and think they've figured it out. They run cold for 2 months and blame the cards. Neither conclusion is statistically valid. Variance doesn't just hurt your bankroll, it destroys your ability to accurately self-assess, which is exactly why losing players stay in the game convinced they're winners. There's one more calculation that serious poker players almost never do, honestly. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is just a fancy term for, what else could I have done with this time and money? Let's say you're one of the rare players who actually beats your local $1/$2 game. You've put in the work, you've got a real edge, and you're clearing about $15 an hour after Rake. That's a legitimate win rate for a strong small stakes player. You're playing 10 hours a week. That's 520 hours a year. At $15 an hour. $7,800 gross for the year. Before gas to the casino. Before food and drinks at the table. Before the sessions where Variance swings against you and you lose 3 buy-ins in a night. Now ask the question nobody asks. What else could 520 hours generate? A part-time job at $25 an hour is $13,000. With zero variance, no rake, and a predictable paycheck. A side business, a skill you could monetize. Even a second stream of investment income. The poker player who beats the rake, beats the variance, and grinds out a real edge, is often still making a poor decision with their time when you look at the full picture. That's the part the poker training industry never puts in the brochure. So, here's where the math lands. Poker is a game where the structural costs never stop. The skill gap required to be profitable is enormous. The variance can hide your true results for years. It means playing it with accurate expectations. If it's entertainment, price it like entertainment. A $100 buy-in at a fun Friday night table has real value. Know what you're paying for and enjoy it. If you're playing it as income, understand you are attempting to enter the top 1 to 5% of a competitive field, while paying a continuous tax to do so, in a game where the natural variance can disguise your results for thousands of hours. Most professionals wouldn't take those odds in any other context. The math doesn't hate poker. The math just doesn't lie about it. If you want to see how these same risk principles apply to sports betting, blackjack, real estate, or your mortgage, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is built to do. I'm POW. This is the House Math. See you next week.